Life works. That is the first and most important detail. Not that it inspires you, not that it feels meaningful, only that it functions. You wake up, not because you want to, but because the body has learned the hour. You move through your morning almost automatically, the same gestures, the same sequence, the same silence. There is no resistance strong enough to stop you, no confusion intense enough to slow you down. Your life moves forward, even when you are not fully present inside it. Nothing is falling apart, nothing is urgently wrong, and because of that, nothing calls for reflection. A life that works rarely invites questions. It gives you just enough comfort to keep you from stopping, just enough structure to keep you obedient to the rhythm, just enough reward to convince you that things are going well. You participate in systems that were built long before you arrived. You adopt schedules you did not design. You pursue goals you never deeply examined, and still, everything appears reasonable. You are told this is adulthood, this is responsibility, this is what stability looks like. A working life is a quiet life. It does not scream for meaning. It does not collapse under its own weight. It does not shock you awake with despair. Instead, it slowly convinces you that meaning is unnecessary. Because why ask questions when the machine is running smoothly? Bills are paid. Messages are answered. Obligations are fulfilled. The world responds to your compliance with approval. And approval is addictive. It reassures you that you are doing things right, even if you no longer know what right means. In a life that works, efficiency replaces curiosity. You learn to value speed over depth, results over reflection, movement over direction. You become good at continuing. And continuation feels like progress, even when nothing essential is changing. The days begin to resemble one another, not in a painful way, but in a soft, almost comforting repetition. Morning, task, break, distraction, sleep. Each day closes without demanding an explanation. And slowly, something subtle happens. You stop asking yourself why and begin asking only how. How to be more productive, how to be less tired, how to manage time better, how to optimize what already exists. The deeper questions feel impractical. Why this life and not another? Why these values? Why this direction? They feel disruptive, unnecessary, almost irresponsible. So you postpone them. Later. When things calm down, when you have more time, when something forces you to ask, but nothing forces you. Because nothing is broken. And so the questions remain untouched, not because they are answered, but because they are never invited. A life that works trains you to trust appearances. If it looks stable, it must be right. If it feels comfortable, it must be good. If it functions, it must be meaningful enough. You begin to confuse smoothness with truth. You learn to accept explanations that require no effort, stories that reduce complexity, narratives that justify repetition. This is just how life is. This is normal. This is what everyone does. And because everyone is doing it, it feels safe. Safety becomes the highest value, not consciously, quietly. You do not wake up one day and decide to stop questioning. You simply forget that questioning was ever an option. The capacity fades through disuse, like a muscle never exercised, like a language never spoken. This is how meaning disappears without drama, not through tragedy, not through loss, but through routine. A routine that protects you from discomfort while slowly distancing you from yourself. You are not unhappy, but you are not deeply alive either. You are calm. But that calm is fragile. It depends on everything continuing to work. As long as the structure holds, you do not look beneath it. And perhaps that is the most unsettling aspect of all. A life that works without being questioned does not feel like a problem. From the outside, it looks responsible, respectable, successful. From the inside, it feels neutral. No urgency, no hunger. no deep reason to wake up tomorrow other than to maintain what already exists. And so the question stays silent, not because it lacks importance, but because the life you are living has trained you to believe that asking it would change nothing. For now. And that is how a life can pass, fully operational, perfectly functional, and never once ask what it was truly meant to be. Comfort is one of the most misunderstood experiences of modern life. It feels gentle, it feels deserved, it feels like rest after effort, and because it does not hurt, we assume it must be good. Comfort does not arrive violently. It arrives quietly, wrapped in convenience, routine, and familiarity. It tells you that you are safe, that nothing urgent needs to change, that whatever questions exist can wait. And so, slowly, comfort becomes a substitute for meaning. The illusion begins the moment comfort is mistaken for fulfillment. When life feels smooth, when suffering is reduced to manageable levels, we stop listening to the deeper signals of existence. The quiet void does not announce itself as pain. It announces itself as neutrality, a life that feels neither tragic nor inspiring, a life that moves forward without resistance, a life where nothing is terribly wrong, but nothing feels deeply right either. This neutrality is seductive. It allows you to function. It allows you to participate. It allows you to avoid extremes. And avoidance becomes a skill. Comfort teaches you how to stay on the surface of things. You learn to optimize your surroundings to minimize discomfort. You choose environments that do not challenge you, conversations that do not unsettle you, goals that are achievable without transformation. You tell yourself you are being realistic. The void does not interrupt this realism. It waits quietly beneath it. The illusion of comfort depends on distraction. As long as attention is occupied, the void has no space to speak. Screens help. Noise helps. Endless information helps. You move from stimulus to stimulus, never staying long enough in silence for something deeper to emerge. And because the distractions are pleasant, you call this happiness. But happiness that cannot survive silence is not happiness. It is sedation. The quiet void reveals itself in moments you avoid. Unscheduled time, long pauses, nights without stimulation. In these moments there's a faint sense of lack. Not sadness, not despair. Just the feeling that something essential is missing from the structure of your life. But comfort is quick to respond. It offers solutions, entertainment, consumption, small pleasures. These solutions do not address the void. They cover it. And coverage feels enough when the void is quiet. Over time, comfort reshapes your emotional range. You stop experiencing deep dissatisfaction, but you also stop experiencing deep longing. You stop asking impossible questions, but you also stop imagining impossible lives. Everything becomes moderate. Moderate happiness, moderate sadness, moderate ambition. This moderation feels like balance, but it is a balance maintained by avoidance, not understanding. The illusion of comfort is strengthened by social agreement. When everyone around you lives this way, the quiet void feels normal. You tell yourself, this is adulthood. This is maturity. This is what stability looks like. And stability becomes sacred. Anything that threatens it is labeled impractical, dangerous, or naive. Depth is postponed. Meaning is delayed. Existential honesty is treated as indulgence. Comfort protects you from pain, but it also protects you from confrontation. It prevents you from facing the fundamental tension of being human, the need for meaning in a world that does not provide it easily. The quiet void is not an enemy. It is a signal. But comfort teaches you to ignore signals that do not demand immediate action. Why respond to something that does not hurt? Why investigate a lack that does not disrupt functionality? And so the void becomes part of the background. It blends into the rhythm of your days. You may live for years this way, calm, efficient, unquestioned, until one day perhaps the illusion weakens, not because comfort disappears, but because it is no longer convincing. You realize that ease has replaced purpose, that calm has replaced direction, that comfort has replaced truth. And in that realization, the quiet void is finally heard. Not as a scream, but as a simple, unsettling awareness. Comfort has kept you safe, but it has not told you why you are here. And for the first time, the silence beneath your life feels heavier than the pain you once worked so hard to avoid. Nietzsche begins by dismantling one of the most comforting assumptions human beings hold, the belief that meaning exists independently of us, waiting patiently to be discovered. He asks a question most people avoid. Why do you expect life to explain itself to you? For centuries, meaning was received, not created. It came from God, from tradition, from moral systems that claimed divine or historical authority. People did not need to choose their values, they inherited them. Nietzsche saw this inheritance as a form of quiet obedience, not obedience enforced by violence, but obedience maintained by comfort. When meaning is given, life feels guided. You know what is expected. You know what counts as success, virtue, failure, sin. But this guidance comes at a price. You never truly live for yourself. For Nietzsche, the death of God was not a celebration, it was a diagnosis. When the old sources of meaning collapse, humanity faces a terrifying reality. Nothing will replace them automatically. Meaning does not regenerate on its own. This is where Nietzsche's thought becomes dangerous. He does not offer a new system. He does not replace old truths with new ones. He leaves a void, and he demands that the individual face it, meaning Nietzsche insists must be taken through force of will, taken through creation, taken through confrontation with chaos. Life, in his view, is not ordered. It is excessive, contradictory, and indifferent. To live meaningfully is not to align with a cosmic plan, but to impose form on chaos. This imposition is an act of power, not power over others, but power over oneself. The power to decide what matters, the power to say yes and no without external permission. Most people, Nietzsche has believed, fear this power. They prefer to live inside ready-made frameworks. Religion tells them how to live. Culture tells them what to desire. Morality tells them what to value. These systems feel natural because they are shared. But shared values are not necessarily chosen values. Nietzsche saw herd morality as the great enemy of greatness. When everyone agrees on what is good, no one risks becoming exceptional. Comfort emerges from sameness, and sameness suffocates creation. To take meaning is to step outside the herd. It requires solitude. It requires the courage to disappoint others. It requires the willingness to be misunderstood. This is why Nietzsche associates meaning with suffering, not suffering as punishment, but suffering as consequence. The consequence of choosing yourself in a world that rewards conformity. Meaning taken rather than given destroys the illusion of innocence. You can no longer say, "I was just following the rules." There are no rules, only interpretations, only choices. And every choice shapes the kind of life you live. Nietzsche's critique of comfort is relentless. Comfort dulls the will. It makes people satisfied with repetition. It replaces ambition with security. A comfortable life avoids extremes, but extremes are where creation happens. Great values are born from tension, not from balance. Nietzsche does not promise happiness. He promises intensity, struggle, and risk. A meaningful life for him is not calm. It is alive. It demands constant reevaluation, constant overcoming of past selves. You do not create meaning once and keep it forever. You must take it again and again. This is why Nietzsche speaks of self-overcoming. To create meaning is to destroy the version of yourself that is no longer growing. This destruction is painful. It feels like betrayal of your upbringing, of your culture, of the expectations placed upon you. But without betrayal, there is no creation. Meaning taken is personal, unstable, and fragile. It does not come with guarantees. It does not protect you from failure. It does not promise comfort. But it gives your life a direction that belongs to you alone. Nietzsche's philosophy leaves no refuge. You cannot hide behind tradition. You cannot hide behind morality. You cannot hide behind comfort. If your life lacks meaning, it is not because meaning was denied to you. It is because you have not yet dared to take it. And taking meaning requires something rare, the courage to live without approval, to affirm your values even when no authority validates them, to say yes to life not because it is safe or justified, but because you choose it. For Nietzsche, this is the highest form of life, not a life that works smoothly, not a life that feels comfortable, but a life that dares to create itself in a world that offers no instructions. A life that does not wait to be told what it is for. A life that takes its meaning by force of becoming. Nietzsche's concept of the last man is one of the most unsettling images in modern philosophy. It is not a villain. It is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is ordinary. The last man is the endpoint of comfort, stability, and avoidance of risk. He does not seek glory. He does not seek challenge. He does not seek transformation. He seeks only one thing: safety. The last man lives in a world where everything is predictable. The streets are safe. The food is reliable. The routines are familiar. There are no wild storms, no sudden trials, no chaos that might force growth. And in this safety, the last man finds satisfaction. Or at least, he believes he does. He has learned to avoid pain. He has learned to avoid uncertainty. He has learned to avoid struggle, because struggle is dangerous. It can break comfort. It can expose the self to fear, failure, and loneliness. And for the last man, these are threats to be avoided at all costs. In Nietzsche's description, the last man is content with mediocrity. He says, "We have invented happiness. But this happiness is small, shallow, and ultimately unchallenging. It is the happiness of routine, the happiness of compliance, the happiness of never being tested. There is no aspiration, no longing, no drive to become more than he already is, no confrontation with the unknown. The last man has no enemies. No enemies because he does not leave his comfort zone. No enemies because he does not pursue greatness that might provoke resistance. Safety becomes the ultimate value. Comfort becomes a measure of success. Risk is seen as unnecessary. Nietzsche's warning is precise. A life that seeks only safety will never produce greatness. Greatness, he argues, is born in tension. It is born in struggle. It is born in risk, failure, and transformation. Without these elements, life flattens. It loses depth. It loses intensity. It becomes predictable and therefore small. The last man does not notice this loss. He is too comfortable. He has no reason to reach beyond the walls of his safety. He does not feel the absence of greatness because he has learned to equate absence with sufficiency. The danger of the last man is not his happiness. It is his subtle decay. A society of last men becomes risk-averse, innovation stagnates, culture dulls, values become watered down, the extraordinary becomes invisible because ordinary has become acceptable. Nietzsche presents the last man as a mirror for modern civilization. He asks, are we so focused on comfort, convenience, and security that we have forgotten what it means to grow? The last man's life is safe, but it is not alive in the fullest sense. It is comfortable, but it is not meaningful. It is long, but it is not deep. He avoids pain, but he also avoids challenge. He avoids chaos, but he also avoids creation. Safety becomes a cage, and comfort becomes a chain. The last man is, in many ways, a tragic figure. Not tragic because he suffers, but tragic because he never reaches the heights he might have. He never confronts the storms that could have shaped him into something greater. In seeking only what is easy, he sacrifices what is essential. He sacrifices passion, struggle, and ambition. He sacrifices the chance to be fully alive. Nietzsche's image of the last man is a warning, not a prophecy. It asks each of us to examine our own lives. Are we avoiding discomfort at the cost of depth? Are we choosing safety over challenge, predictability over intensity? Are we drifting quietly, content to live small because greatness seems too dangerous, too demanding, or too lonely? The last man is not a distant figure. He is a reflection of what happens when comfort becomes the ultimate goal. And Nietzsche challenges us to refuse that comfort, to risk pain, to risk misunderstanding, to risk failure, because only in risk can greatness be found. To live fully, Nietzsche implies, is to embrace life's unpredictability, to accept its chaos, to confront its challenges, to transform oneself in ways that comfort cannot allow. The last man, then, is not merely a cautionary figure. He is a call to action. He is the reminder that safety without greatness is not life. It is existence. It is moving without striving, breathing without aspiring, surviving without becoming. And Nietzsche's message is clear. If we seek only to be comfortable, we will never truly be alive. Because life is not about safety. Life is about creation. Life is about intensity. Life is about the courage to risk everything, even comfort itself, to reach heights that only the storm can offer. The last man has found comfort, but comfort is not life, and it is in that distinction that Nietzsche's warning lies, waiting silently for those willing to listen. The universe is silent. It does not notice you. It does not answer. It does not explain. Time passes, seasons change, stars burn, rivers flow, and all of it continues, utterly indifferent, as if your existence does not matter. And yet, here you are. You search, you question, you hope. You want life to make sense. You want purpose. You want a reason. And in this search, the first tension arises. You feel it almost immediately. Your desire for meaning, your need for explanation, your hope that life is not random, collides with the unyielding indifference of the world. This tension, this collision, is what Albert Camus calls the absurd. The absurd is not loud. It does not shout. It does not demand. It does not punish. It waits, patient, quiet, subtle. It reveals itself only when the noise of life quiets down, when routine falls away, when the distractions of comfort, obligation, and habit dissolve, even for a moment. Most people never notice it. They never encounter the absurd. Because life is busy, because life is distracting, because life offers endless activities, small pleasures, and constant motion. Screens, work, errands, noise, conversation, television, social media. All of it keeps the mind moving, keeps the attention occupied, keeps the quiet void at bay. And in this busyness, life feels meaningful. Life feels complete. Life feels enough. But the absurd is always there, waiting, even when unnoticed. It is there in the pauses, in the spaces between tasks, in the stillness of night, in the long moments when nothing is required, and you finally look inward. And then you feel it. That quiet, heavy weight. A subtle awareness, a realization. The universe does not owe you purpose. It does not answer your questions. It does not justify your hopes. It does not reward your efforts. Nothing guarantees that anything you do matters. Nothing ensures that your actions will leave a trace. Nothing offers assurance. This is the absurd. At first, it can be unsettling. It can feel like emptiness, a pressing, quiet awareness that life is unresponsive. That meaning is not written in the stars. That significance is not handed down from somewhere outside yourself. And yet, Camus tells us, do not flee, do not despair, do not try to escape, because the absurd is not a problem. It is a truth, a condition. Once you acknowledge it, a strange freedom arises. You are no longer waiting for meaning. You are no longer dependent on the universe, on God, on society, on tradition, on approval. You no longer need someone else to validate your existence. You act because you are alive. You move because you exist. You create because there is something within you that desires expression. You love because your heart moves you to. This is the rebellion Camus speaks of. It is quiet, it is patient, it is steady, it does not demand attention or admiration, it does not shout, it simply continues as long as you choose to continue with it. The absurd does not promise comfort, it does not provide guidance, it does not make life easier, it does not remove fear, pain, or uncertainty. But it gives clarity, it gives presence, it gives the freedom to live intentionally. Once you embrace the absurd, you no longer cling to illusions. You no longer wait for life to explain itself. You no longer depend on validation or reward or external justification. You see clearly. You see that your choices, your actions, your moments exist only in this life, in this time, in this space. And that is enough. Even in a silent, indifferent universe, you can act. Even when life has no ultimate guarantee, you can create meaning for yourself. Even when the world offers no validation, you can choose to be present. The absurd is not tragedy. It is lucidity. It is courage. It is the moment when you recognize reality as it is, without the illusions that comfort often provides. Most people never encounter this awareness. They fill the void with work. They fill it with routine. They fill it with small pleasures. They fill it with distractions. And while they do, life feels safe. It feels comfortable. It feels enough. But comfort is not clarity. Ease is not freedom. Safety is not life. The absurd waits patiently for moments of stillness, for nights without distractions, for pauses between obligations, for seconds in which the mind cannot escape itself. Then, when the quiet arrives, it speaks. Not with words, but with awareness, and you feel it. The silent, persistent truth. Life does not owe you meaning. The universe does not answer. Time moves regardless. And in that awareness lies freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to act, freedom to live fully, deliberately, consciously, freedom to love even if it will end, freedom to create even if it will vanish, freedom to be even if the world does not notice. This is the gift of the absurd. It teaches that existence itself, without justification, without external purpose, is enough to live for. The absurd is both challenge and liberation. It confronts expectations. It removes illusions. It strips life to its essence, and it leaves you with a question. Will you live fully, even in silence, even without validation, even without meaning handed down to you? To live with the absurd is to live consciously. It is to act intentionally. It is to accept the indifference of the universe and still find depth, value, and engagement in every moment. The absurd is not the end. It is the beginning. It is the horizon against which life shines. It is the truth that awakens clarity. It is the quiet companion that teaches courage. To face the absurd is to face life itself. And to live after that fully is the truest act of rebellion. Even in silence, even in indifference, even in the absence of meaning, you are free. You act, you love, you live. And in this freedom, you find something extraordinary. The universe may not notice you. Life may not justify you. Meaning may not be given. But you can still be fully alive. The absurd is always present. It waits quietly beneath the surface of life, beneath work, beneath routine, beneath the noise. It waits in the gaps, in the silence, in the still moments that few ever allow themselves to experience. And yet, most people never feel it. Most people live their entire lives without ever encountering it fully. Why? Because the human mind is restless, because distraction is everywhere, because comfort is seductive. Life offers countless ways to fill the quiet void. Work keeps the hands busy, the mind moving, the hours passing. Screens capture attention, flicker after flicker, endlessly entertaining. Conversations, obligations, errands. They consume thought before it can wander. Even pleasure can be a shield. Meals, drinks, music, media, all of these provide small, temporary satisfactions that prevent reflection. Even love, even affection, even companionship, when pursued only as distraction, can keep the absurd unexperienced. The absurd requires stillness, it requires silence, it requires pause. But stillness is rare, silence is uncomfortable, pause is feared. Because in stillness, you meet yourself. And in meeting yourself, the quiet void begins to speak. It asks questions you cannot answer with tasks or distractions. Why do you do what you do? What is it you are living for? Do your days matter? Does your life matter? And for most, these questions are too dangerous to ask, because asking them requires honesty. Because honesty might reveal dissatisfaction, because honesty might expose emptiness, and emptiness feels threatening. So the mind turns away. It fills the spaces. It seeks noise. It seeks activity. It seeks comfort. Comfort, after all, is much easier than confrontation. Comfort tells you that everything is fine. Comfort tells you that life works. Comfort tells you that happiness is sufficient. But happiness that depends on distraction, comfort, or avoidance is not freedom. It is sedation. It is a quiet surrender to the absence of meaning without acknowledgement of it. The absurd remains unfelt for another reason: familiarity. Human beings are built to trust what is known. Routine, habits, and inherited values give life a sense of coherence. They provide answers, or at least the illusion of answers, without requiring thought, reflection, or risk. Religion, culture, society, family expectations, all of these can provide frameworks of meaning, systems of order that give life structure without requiring creation. Most people adopt these frameworks without question. They follow paths laid before them. They obey rules they did not choose. They accept values they did not invent. And in doing so, the absurd remains dormant. It is not absent. It is simply ignored. And yet the absurd is persistent. It may not wake you while you are busy. It may not speak while you are distracted. But it waits. It waits for the quiet moments, for the nights when sleep does not come, for the pauses when thought slows, for the moments when entertainment ends and stillness returns. Then, suddenly, the absurd is felt, not as drama, not as pain, not as revelation, but as awareness. A quiet, insistent awareness of the truth that life has no guarantee. The realization that meaning is not handed down. The recognition that the universe is indifferent. And when the absurd is finally experienced, it can feel heavy, disorienting, even frightening. But it is also liberating, because once it is felt, you are free. Free from illusions, free from dependence, free from the expectation that life must justify itself to you. The absurd requires courage. The courage to pause, the courage to face silence, the courage to acknowledge that you exist in an indifferent universe, the courage to feel the emptiness that comfort and distraction have hidden. And this is why it is so rarely experienced. Most people never allow themselves the pause. Most people never step out of the noise. Most people never confront their own thoughts long enough to meet the absurd. And so it remains hidden, unfelt, waiting. Until one day perhaps you stop running. Until one day perhaps you slow down. Until one day perhaps you look inward. And then it speaks. Quietly, gently, insistently. It asks, what is it that you are living for? What will you do with this life, knowing nothing guarantees it matters? And in that question lies the beginning of freedom. Because the absurd, once acknowledged, cannot be ignored. It cannot be silenced. It cannot be distracted away. It must be faced. It must be lived with. And in living with it, a strange, quiet courage emerges. The courage to act, the courage to create, the courage to love, the courage to live fully, deliberately, consciously, even in the absence of external justification. The absurd remains unfelt, not because it is rare, but because we rarely still ourselves enough to notice. We rarely allow the mind to pause. We rarely embrace the silence that makes awareness possible. Yet it is always there, waiting, patient, persistent. And when it finally speaks, when the quiet is allowed, we finally see life as it truly is, uncertain, indifferent, transient, yet full of possibility, yet full of freedom, yet full of the quiet, persistent opportunity to live fully, deeply, consciously, and with courage. Some people live their lives in quiet comfort. Their days are predictable, their routines are stable, their work is steady, their homes are familiar, their nights pass without question. They are not unhappy. Not exactly. They feel peace, they feel contentment, they feel functional happiness. It is a quiet, almost invisible satisfaction, not the joy that comes in bursts, not the passion that ignites the heart, not the deep satisfaction of a life fully tested, fully challenged, but calm, soft, steady. It is the kind of happiness that does not demand questions, it does not demand struggle, it does not demand reflection. Because those who experience this peace do not search. They do not look for ultimate meaning. They do not pause to ask the hard questions. They do not confront the void, the chaos, the silence. They live with inherited meaning, with routines, with social norms, with accepted values. And in doing so, they are protected. Protected from discomfort, protected from fear, protected from the weight of existential truth. Their days are easy, their nights are quiet, their minds do not wander into the spaces where the absurd waits. And yet, this functional happiness is fragile. It is only a shelter, a quiet mask, a temporary relief from the deeper questions that stir beneath the surface, because the peace they feel comes not from understanding, not from mastery, not from engagement with life's chaos, but from avoidance. They avoid reflection. They avoid discomfort. They avoid the possibility that life has no given purpose. And in that avoidance, they find comfort. Comfort is powerful. It shapes the mind. It shapes the heart. It shapes the choices they make. To be at peace without searching is convenient. It is predictable. It is safe. It allows life to flow without interruption. But it is not freedom. Because comfort without search is not fully conscious. It is reactive, not creative. It follows inherited paths rather than chosen ones. It obeys expectations rather than engages with life. And yet, from the outside, it can appear enviable. The functional happy live without crisis, without fear of failure, without existential weight pressing on the chest. They smile, they rest, they pass their days with quiet satisfaction. And this is why most people cling to it, because searching is dangerous, because reflection is uncomfortable, because questioning meaning threatens peace. To confront the void, to notice the absurd, to wrestle with the silence of the universe requires courage. To remain functional, comfortable, content without searching requires only avoidance. Functional happiness is peace without struggle. It is calm without depth. It is safety without greatness. It is life without the risk of confrontation. And for many, that is enough. They are shielded from the chaos of life. They are protected from the questions that burn. They are spared the tension of choice. They live quietly. They work steadily. They exist without disruption. And in this quiet existence, life feels sufficient. It feels whole. It feels enough. But Camus, Nietzsche, and those who have faced the absurd know something different. Peace without searching is not the same as living. Contentment without questioning is not freedom. Functional happiness may protect the mind, but it cannot awaken the soul. Because the mind that never questions, the heart that never wrestles with emptiness, the life that never pauses to confront chaos, remains untested. It remains small. It remains safe. And yet, from within that safety, there is a quiet whisper, waiting. A whisper that asks, what if comfort is not enough? What if safety is not life? What if the peace you feel is the absence of struggle and not the presence of meaning? Most do not hear this whisper. Most never do. Because functional happiness is functional. It performs its job perfectly. It shields the mind. It eases the heart. It makes life livable, but not fully alive. To live beyond functional happiness, to embrace discomfort, to confront emptiness, to wrestle with meaning, requires courage. It requires stillness. It requires reflection. It requires the willingness to step into the silence the mind usually avoids. And only then, only when peace is questioned, does the mind awaken fully. Only then does the soul stir. Only then does life become more than a routine of comfort. Functional happiness is a quiet life, a safe life, a peaceful life. But life, truly lived, requires engagement. It requires confrontation. It requires wrestling with the absurd, with chaos, with emptiness. Functional happiness is an invitation to remain small, to remain safe, to remain untested. And yet, even within this quiet life, even within this calm existence, there is a choice: to remain comfortable or to awaken, to live without questions or to seek meaning even in silence, to accept peace as enough or to embrace the tension that comes with being fully conscious. And this is where the path diverges. The functional happy may rest, but the restless, the questioning, the aware, they step into life fully. They face the absurd. They risk discomfort. They confront emptiness. And only then, only there does the soul find depth, intensity, and freedom. To live is to confront reality. To breathe, to act, to think is to engage with life as it truly is, not as we wish it to be, not as stories or tradition or comfort suggest it should be, but as it is. And life, in its rawness, offers no guarantees. There is no promise of meaning, no assurance of reward, no certainty that your choices will endure, no guarantee that the world will acknowledge your existence. Yet most people live in illusion. They follow the scripts handed down to them. They accept norms without question. They cling to comfort, to distraction, to inherited belief. They paint over the cracks in their understanding with stories, lies, and excuses. They sleep while the universe continues in silence. But some awaken, and awakening begins quietly, not with fireworks, not with dramatic realization, but with a subtle awareness. Life is not as I thought it was. Life does not owe me meaning. The universe does not answer. Everything I believed, expected, or relied upon is fragile. This awareness can be frightening. It can feel like standing on the edge of a vast, empty plain, with no guide, no path, no map. It can feel like weight pressing on the chest, like silence louder than words. And yet, within this recognition lies the possibility of rebellion, not loud rebellion, not destructive rebellion, not rebellion for the sake of ego or anger, but quiet, deliberate rebellion. The rebellion of choice, the rebellion of awareness, the rebellion of living fully despite emptiness, despite uncertainty, despite the absence of cosmic justification. To live without illusion is to live consciously, to act with knowledge, not deception, to move through life fully aware that comfort can lie, that happiness can distract, that safety can sedate, and to continue moving, to continue loving, to continue creating, to continue existing. This is Camus' absurd hero in motion. The world may offer no meaning, but the human being can still act. The world may remain silent, but the human mind can still choose. The world may be indifferent, but the human heart can still care. Quiet rebellion is not a refusal of life. It is an embrace of it. It is the decision to exist fully, even when existence is unguaranteed, even when certainty is absent, even when illusions fall away. It is the refusal to surrender to distraction. It is the refusal to hide in comfort. It is the refusal to live without awareness. And yet, Rebellion is also subtle. It does not shout. It does not demand attention. It does not seek validation. It is a private, intimate act. It occurs in the choices you make, in the moments you pause to notice, in the courage to continue, even when nothing compels you. To live without illusion is not easy. It requires stillness. It requires reflection. It requires courage. It requires patience. Because the world will continue, because the universe will remain silent, because routine, comfort, and distraction will call you back at every turn. But quiet rebellion persists. It is a steady insistence, a gentle refusal to accept life on terms that are not fully conscious, a persistent choice to see clearly, to act deliberately, to live authentically, even if life offers no guide, no reward, no guarantee. This rebellion is not heroic in the conventional sense. It does not require strength, wealth, or fame. It is not recognized by society. It does not need applause. It is quiet. It is internal. It is profound in its simplicity. You live because you exist. You love because your heart moves you. You create because the world is silent, and still your spirit moves. To live without illusion is to step out of the shadow of inherited meaning. It is to walk in the open air of awareness. It is to accept the fragility, the uncertainty, the indifference of life, and to move forward anyway. This is rebellion. Not violent, not destructive, not loud, but eternal in its persistence, deep in its courage, complete in its authenticity. The quiet rebel does not wait for meaning, does not hope for reward, does not rely on approval. They act, they exist, they live, because that is all life demands. Not understanding, not guarantee, not comfort, but presence. And in presence, in awareness, in conscious action, life becomes real. Even in silence, even in emptiness, even without illusion. And that perhaps is the truest form of freedom. There is a subtle tension in thought, a dialogue without words, a conversation that stretches across time, across centuries, across minds. It does not shout. It does not demand attention. It does not exist in the noise of everyday life. It exists in the quiet spaces of reflection, in the moments when the mind slows and the heart notices. Friedrich Nietzsche and Albert Camus. Two minds confronting the same silence, two perspectives, two responses, two approaches to the question of life, meaning, and existence. And yet, they are in opposition. Not violent, not loud, not dramatic, but quiet, subtle, and persistent. Nietzsche begins with the individual. He looks at the void and sees a challenge, a call, a demand. Life is not a gift, he says. Life is a battlefield. It is raw, untamed, and indifferent. And yet, in that very indifference lies the possibility of greatness. Meaning is not given. It is not provided. It must be claimed. It must be wrested from life, from struggle, from adversity. It must be taken with courage, forged in fire, and carved from the chaos that surrounds us. Nietzsche's human is not passive. It is not content with comfort. It is not satisfied with routine. It is an artist, a warrior, a creator. It shapes itself and its world. It overcomes. It rises. It becomes more than ordinary, more than functional, more than safe. Camus, in contrast, begins elsewhere. He looks at the void and sees life, not as a challenge to conquer, not as a mountain to climb, not as an enemy to defeat, but as a condition to accept. The absurd is not a problem. It is not a puzzle to solve. It is not a crisis to escape. It is simply the way things are. The universe is indifferent. Life is uncertain. Meaning is absent. And yet, life persists. And so must we. Camus does not demand heroism in the Nietzschean sense. He does not call for struggle or power or dominance. He calls for awareness. He calls for lucidity. He calls for rebellion, quiet, deliberate, internal. to live fully despite the absence of guarantees, to act consciously despite uncertainty, to choose presence over illusion. Herein lies their silent opposition. Nietzsche says, seize meaning, make yourself powerful, overcome, rise above the void. Camus says, accept the void, live fully anyway, rebel quietly, persist. Nietzsche seeks greatness through action, through confrontation, through creation. He challenges the universe, demands from life, and forces significance into existence. Camus seeks freedom through acceptance, through awareness, through lucidity. He accepts the universe's indifference and chooses to live meaningfully anyway, not by imposing order, but by embracing life as it is. Nietzsche sees life as a canvas. Camus sees life as a horizon. Nietzsche urges courage, intensity, audacity. Camus urges reflection, awareness, persistence. And yet, both converge. Both emerge from the same silent recognition. The universe will not hand you meaning. Life offers no guarantees. Time will pass regardless of your actions. Nothing outside you ensures significance. And this is the paradox. Two paths, two philosophies, two responses to the same silence. One calls for audacity, for power, for creation. The other calls for lucidity, for presence, for quiet rebellion. One says, conquer the void. The other says, embrace it. And both, silently, insist on action. Neither allows passivity. Neither condones surrender. Neither permits existence without engagement. And in this tension, there is wisdom. To read Nietzsche is to feel the power of possibility. To read Camus is to feel the weight and liberation of reality. Nietzsche confronts you with your potential. Camus confronts you with your condition. Nietzsche challenges you to rise above. Camus challenges you to persist despite. Nietzsche teaches that life is something to shape. Camus teaches that life is something to inhabit consciously. And the space between them, the silent opposition, is where reflection grows. It is where thought deepens. It is where the mind begins to consider its own place, its own freedom, its own responsibility. Because both are right and both are necessary. Without Nietzsche, life can feel passive. Without Camus, life can feel chaotic. Without both, life can feel unanchored. Together, they form a tension that mirrors existence itself, action and awareness, creation and acceptance, struggle and lucidity, risk and courage. And this tension is not resolved. It does not need resolution. It exists as a guide, a horizon, a quiet companion in thought. We do not choose one or the other. We must learn to walk between them, to seize when necessary, to persist when necessary, to act with courage and to observe with clarity, to create and to accept, to rise and to endure. In this quiet opposition, we find the essence of engagement with life. We see the possibilities. We feel the weight of reality. We understand the necessity of courage, and we learn the art of living fully, deeply, and consciously. Nietzsche and Camus are not enemies. They are guides. They are mirrors. They are opposites, yes, but opposites that illuminate each other. Their silent dialogue whispers through time. Life will not give you meaning. The universe will not answer. And yet, you can choose, you can act, you can live, you can create, you can persist. And in that choice, in that awareness, in that deliberate engagement with life, you find the quiet power of existence itself. We've traveled slowly through thought, through silence, through reflection. We have felt the weight of the void. We have confronted the absence of meaning. We have listened to the quiet rebellion of the soul. And now, at the end, a question remains. Is comfort proof of health or evidence of escape? Most people believe that comfort is a sign of a well-lived life. They believe that peace, safety, predictability, and ease are rewards for effort. They believe that contentment means success. They believe that a life without struggle is a life well lived. And yet, we have already seen the subtle danger of comfort. Functional happiness, a life without search, peace without struggle, can lull the mind. It can numb awareness. It can hide the weight of reality beneath layers of routine and distraction. Comfort is seductive. It whispers quietly, "Everything is fine. Rest. Do not question. Do not seek. Do not pause." And in that whisper, life can slip by unnoticed. Moments pass. Opportunities fade. The soul remains quiet. The mind remains untested. Escape wears the same mask as comfort. It dresses itself in routine, in safety, in familiarity. It promises peace, yet it avoids reflection. It promises happiness, yet it evades truth. It offers relief, yet it asks nothing of the heart. And so we ask again. When you feel at peace, when life is easy, when days flow without interruption, is this true health or is it subtle escape? True health, Camus might say, is lucidity. It is awareness. It is choice. It is the courage to live consciously, even when meaning is absent, even when life offers no guarantee, even when the universe remains indifferent. True health is not absence of struggle. It is not absence of discomfort. It is not the quiet sedation of distraction. True health is confrontation. It is reflection. It is rebellion. Quiet, persistent, deliberate rebellion. Nietzsche might say, true life is courage, audacity, and creation. It is taking what is not given. It is imposing form on chaos. It is striving toward greatness, toward intensity, toward mastery of self. And yet, both thinkers agree, silently, on one point. The world will not hand you meaning. The universe will not guide you. Life does not promise reward. What remains is your choice, your responsibility, your freedom. Comfort, when chosen knowingly, is health. It is a pause, a refuge, a moment to gather strength. It is the soft place from which one can rise and act. Comfort, when unexamined, is escape. It is a hiding place. It is a retreat from reality. It is a quiet surrender to illusion, routine, distraction, and safety. And this is the subtle distinction. Health is conscious. Escape is passive. Health is deliberate. Escape is automatic. Health is brave. Escape is quiet. And yet the difference is not always visible. To the outside world, both may appear the same. Both may seem peaceful. Both may seem sufficient. But within, the difference is profound. A life of health pulses with awareness. It feels every moment. It notices the silence. It confronts the void. It acts despite uncertainty. It creates despite indifference. It loves despite impermanence. A life of escape drifts through time. It moves without awareness. It reacts without thought. It follows paths chosen by habit, comfort, and convention. It survives, but it does not awaken. It exists, but it does not live fully. And so we arrive at the final question. When you rest tonight, when your mind is quiet, when your heart beats softly in the dark, is your comfort proof of strength, presence, and awareness? Or is it a veil hiding the silence you refuse to confront? Are you healthy, fully alive, awake in your own existence? Or are you escaping, gently, silently, safely, from the questions that stir beneath? Perhaps the answer lies not in judgment, but in observation, in awareness, in the quiet pause to notice your own choice. Because life is always happening. The universe will not stop for us. Time will continue to pass, and meaning will not be handed down. Only choice remains. Only awareness remains. Only courage remains. And in that courage, in that awareness, in that choice, you live fully. You act deliberately. You face life as it is, and you find a freedom no comfort, no routine, no distraction can ever provide. So, ask yourself once more, comfort or escape? Health or evasion, awareness or sedation, and then choose. Choose to live, choose to confront, choose to be awake, because this is life, this is freedom, this is rebellion, and this at last is the only answer the universe allows.